My name is Denonator, and this is my introduction to speedrunning Kingdom Come Deliverance patch version 1.4.3.
Just doesn't work.
So here at the start I want to take 2 points of vitality. That gives me access to Sprinter perk. And that allows you to run faster, but also spend a bit more stamina doing so. However, even for longer distances, it's still worth it to take Sprinter. I also get the Scout perk that'll be useful later. So there isn't that much to talk about the Scarlet section of the game. I pick up the crossguard and I go talk to Kunesh. I don't need to get the depth from him, I just need to talk to him. And after that I go by Carco and then get the ale, and then I go to the combat training.
That time, then and then it dies. Then I'll call it a day at that point.
Yeah, here it can be a bit random where Kunesh might be, but usually he's not hard to find. Just choose the top dialogue and move on. So you want to talk to Waniak first at this point, so he can start walking towards the arena. And for buying Carcoal, you get the 10 Carcoal and you sell your clothes. And that will allow you to afford the Carcoal. But on top of that, not having the clothes on you will make you go faster, so it's actually useful. If we didn't sell them, we'd just unequip the clothes instead. With this dialogue you can also just mash through, nothing special about it. And at this point all you want to do is try to get some vitality experience. And that can be achieved by finding some tight places where you can keep jumping as fast as possible. To my surprise, Vaniak had walked really quickly here. I'm still not quite sure how that happened, but you should keep an eye on it and go talk to him as soon as he's near the arena.
I guess we'll find out.
Here you just move around and that'll make you progress. So during this combat training and in many other sections of the game where you can't actively make progress, you want to keep running and jumping. Every jump awards you with half a point of vitality experience. And after you have run enough distance, you will get 8 experience all at once. And then like the distance meter will reset. So you can do both of these at once. You can keep running and keep jumping, and you'll work towards both of those at once. So that is the more effective way to go about it. For the chain strikes, it's fastest to do this by stabbing. You stab 2 times in a row, and then you pause just a little while. And then you do that again and again, and you'll be done with the quest. On your last attempt you can try to get a 3rd stab in as well for a bit of extra experience.
Why can you try to vault them in the first place? There's kinda...
After choosing the correct dialogue and skipping the cutscene, game wants you to go pick up the nails for Theresa, but you already picked them up in the house when you woke up.
Ooh, under 4
So
minutes.
you can just talk to Theresa right away.
I think one actually just was.
And here's an exception from normal. You run this way, and this is because you can find the fastest horse nearby in this direction.
Get there faster.
This is not the horse, but I use this horse to get to this other horse. There is an enemy there that you need to be wary of. He might tackle you sometimes, losing a few seconds. It's no big deal if that happens, but
I should try.
if you get unlucky, that could turn out pretty bad.
Grind vitality experience. They're further
There is
away.
no need to save to reset there.
And see if
You don't need to
that
distract the humans.
continues to happen. There's not really anything else I can try to do.
And this might not be the exact fastest way to go through Ravna, but this is what I prefer. It at least feels fastest to me. So here I also run up the hill instead of following the road. And while this might be a little slower than the normal route,
I think you can kind of
there is the
use these
advantage
logs
to it that you can get the Merhyed festival point while you're up here.
help you get
And that is
a little bit.
why this route is
Like the game
the best for this situation. You will see why the festival point comes useful quite soon.
in a sense.
And in the end, this only should waste about
They seem to
maybe
down in any way. It just makes it go
30 seconds at max, I believe, going this route. So it's clearly worth it for the time that you can save later on. Gotta be a little careful in that section where you're going down the hill.
Okay.
The horse might jump a little bit
Pretty
and
good.
get off the ground, and then you'll take fall damage, and that usually kills you.
Somehow open the menu.
So eating from the pot and grabbing
I did not
2 pieces of food here doesn't really matter what you pick.
up, but
Roast duck and that
that'll
soup
do
will do just
as
fine.
well.
And you want to eat them before you go to bed.
It gives less
So when you wake
variance,
up, you'll
but
have full stamina.
hopefully I won't end up being
You want
hungry
to
when I have to
set at least
maybe
2 hours
one
to that
scroll.
timer. Otherwise, you might wake up too early. I usually go with 3 hours to be safe. No need to grab the torch, you just run, and it's a bit of a shortcut you can take here. That door might be closed sometimes, but you can just open it.
That was all right.
This is quite a laggy section in the game. Okay, here you just punch a god so that they can arrest you. This way you don't need to wait around
Trying to surrender.
for that god to come talk to you, that
It seems like
you can
it
wait
somehow
until dawn and
sometimes
proceed. You can just
kind of cancels the
go to jail and it'll instantly be
sort of
dawn
glitch the
already.
game to some degree.
You want to use the horse there to get to the cutscene trigger faster, but also you'll use the horse to escape. This is a bit of a
took a lot of damage.
Unusual scenario where somehow I managed to launch myself really fast and I took quite a bit of fall damage. So I need to fix that with a potion. Usually that doesn't happen. And that will affect this portion of the game a little bit.
I mean, it was pretty fast movement, but
Answer to my prayers, just when I wanted to vent my rage.
but the damage is not really worth it.
So you might be thinking that I'm not going straight to where my objective is, and that is because I want to
Luckily, I
grab items from a chest
kill most of that.
just outside Scarlet's, and you can pretty much just follow this path
But this part will be
to
a
get
little slower.
to it.
I have to wait for the potion.
Kinda need to be careful with that enemy there,
gradually do its
but
thing.
when you have a sprinter and no armor, it's pretty easy to shake him just by running
Yeah, that wasn't
with some stamina management.
enough.
Speaking of stamina management,
See how much that
you
takes away
you definitely
from time.
don't want to recharge your
Shouldn't be a
stamina
huge deal.
to the fullest every time. If you had full stamina, which I don't have here. Alright, here's the chest. Just grab everything inside and start heading towards Skalitz itself. So if you have full stamina, then you want to only regenerate stamina to like I believe it's 65% is the number. 65% of your stamina bar if you're full stamina. If you have reduced max stamina for some reason, like damage or being sleepy or hungry, then you'll always want to regenerate a little higher percentage of your current maximum stamina. So if you're really low on, really low on health, for example, then you basically want to regenerate all of your stamina before you start running again. Here I punched this bandit so that he would start chasing me as fast as possible. That is useful because then later on he will be
able to avoid
far enough that
So that's the way of it?
he won't start chasing you towards the
bandit now.
linden tree where you need to go. Like you saw him walking there, away from you,
Okay, you're right.
and I managed to completely avoid the bandit. He can sometimes give you trouble
Hopefully I
if he
won't
starts
lose
chasing you.
time here.
So here what you're hoping for is, well,
Okay, nice.
what we kind of tried to do there is to run straight at front so that
Kinda
it
need to
would
learn to-
initiate a clinch. which he will immediately
Hold, skip that cutscene. It's
win
a bit long.
and hit you, and that'll
Dash through.
instantly kill you there, allowing progress. But sometimes it doesn't work quite the same way. But either way, you just need to get him to attack you. Here you just select the bottom options for the first two dialogues. And then the last one doesn't matter. You grab your stuff from the chest and get close to the door and then eat from the pot so that Teresa won't get in your way, but rather she will just open the door for you, which is convenient. And now we're traveling to Merhoyed. Because we have the fast travel point, we can do this.
I don't think it usually happens.
And why we do this is to go get a horse. And we can afford a horse because we looted that chest earlier. However, there's a small trick you have to do. Now first you can sell the axe that you picked up. Then you need to knock him out. I'm waiting for the other NPC to go away, and then I do that glitch. When I'm faced in, like, I'm kind of inside an NPC, and then I get out, and I press knock out as soon as I face out of him. Then I will completely skip the knocking out animation. And when you do that, you also cannot get any crime from doing so.
Menus are hard.
So anyway, you knock him out, and you do that because when you knock him out and wait for him to get back up, when he gets back up, for some reason he'll have more gold on him.
I avoided it.
And that allows you to sell more of your stuff that you looted earlier, so that you can get enough gold for the horse. You kind of have to do it this way.
Too much fun.
And then just buy that roach and fast travel back. But you have to wait until 8 here. Which is because the bathhouse opens at 8. And this is the quickest way there. If something goes wrong, you can go around. It's an interesting trick. Anyway, so you buy armor potion, bod potion, and buck's blood potion, and you sell 7 savior schnapps so that you can afford all of that. And you don't really need savior schnapps other than that one that I like to use in some cases as a backup save. So this part was also unusual.
Long loading here.
Somehow they failed to initiate dialogue with me. Normally the dialogue would just show up.
Yeah, it's probably because I ran
and then
so far
you
past
just
them.
simply mash
They
through
are
it.
somehow unable to
And there's not much to it. You
engage in
just
dialogue
mash and go
right now.
go on with your run. But for some reason the dialogue didn't show up at all for me.
That dialogue.
So in game time, which is the timer you can see there in the top left,
Time, that wasn't very fast, but
in game time that's fast, but
with the loading
In real time, that of course
that is actually
was much slower.
a time save.
Another, so how would we know which were your ordained bones or
Now,
those of Sigismund's
coming up is
time?
the training with Bernard. And for Bernard to show up, you need to wait 2 times. Doesn't matter how long you wait. Of course, you could wait a long time and he would probably appear, but instead you can just wait 2 times for a really short time. Be sure to choose the bottom option there for the last dialogue, otherwise the training will be much longer. In this free fight, you
I had no chance.
try to get as much experience as possible. There isn't really anything else you can do. There is something you could do. You can escape the arena by having a horse right outside the arena so that you can mount it from the inside. And then you can go stab some pigs with your wooden sword. But if someone catches you doing that, you get a bounty, which wouldn't be a big issue, but it actually soft locks the game later on.
Really aggressive.
Bernard, for some reason,
And
will not
attacking,
give you
pretty
the dialogue that you need.
unfortunate
progress the
times
game.
for me.
Fine. That's enough.
At least I get the shorter dialogue.
Let's try something more advanced.
I'm pretty sure
Combat, keep an eye on the space.
if you don't get many hits in on Bernard,
Experience.
The opponent will find hard
he gives you the other dialogue, and I think it's a bit faster.
uppercut. My sword is
But I never really tried to go for it because I do want the experience during that section, so I try to get as much of that as possible.
very good. Nice.
So this zone change, you don't really
Only got the
need to
sword
change
at this point.
any zones, you just
Fend off your blows with my
stab in the middle,
between us. But it's better not to control just
and that
the
will
strength, but
always
actually
succeed, and it's also the fastest way to attack.
All right, that will do.
And of course,
The
in between all these sections,
counter attacks.
you do want to run and jump around for the experience. It's actually quite important later on.
That's it.
And here, this trick you can do to avoid this slow motion that you just saw there. You can hold this print button and look a bit to the side of Bernard. That way, when he attacks, the slow motion will not happen.
Concentrate and block just at the moment.
But when he starts attacking, you need to be quick to react, otherwise you won't get the block.
Close one.
And if you fail the block, you sometimes get a really long dialogue for it, wasting like over 10 seconds.
Good.
So it's
He was attacking pretty quickly. There was like,
better to
Good. Now let's try it at full
be like a bit too careful and
normal at the start.
trying to predict, and sometimes getting the slow motion instead of like trying really hard and
all right.
missing the timing altogether.
Captain Bernard.
Why do you do that? That's the
Wait a while, Henry.
douchiest thing.
You kind of want to lure Bernard close to the fence. That'll save a bit of time. But I kind of messed up there, trying to jump around for the vitality experience, but then he tackled me and I couldn't do anything for quite a while.
standing the opponent where you want him. There's one more way to evade a strike. You simply step aside, attack, and I'll show you.
Nothing special here. Sometimes he doesn't actually dodge, but then you just attack again. There is the plus side that you get a little bit of extra experience.
As you see me, raise the weapon, jump aside. It'll throw the opponent off a bit, and there's your chance. Good. All right.
The slow motion here is very mild compared to earlier. And on top of that, it is much harder to avoid the slow motion.
Hey, fast attack now, Bernard.
Very good.
That's okay.
Very good.
Just an extra.
So trying to skip that
Okay, that's good.
slow motion there is
It's okay.
like much more risk than is worth. You also saw that he attacked me 4 times. Sometimes if he attacks too quickly, it might not count.
Well done. Not bad.
Here what you try to do is
Again.
That didn't do it.
No. Again.
That didn't do it.
you try to
No, it did.
start the stab
That's odd.
from the middle
Maybe we'll make a soldier.
Okay.
and then
Fine.
move your mouse slightly up
Might have talent.
so that
Alone won't do.
you kind of change the
Okay with my.
attack zone that way.
Don't leave yet.
Can be a bit tricky, but
What I thought was.
if you fail some of the attempts, you do gain extra experience again, which is useful.
Execution of that.
So here you can avoid fall damage by unmounting your horse in the air. So if you're unmounting while you're like when you land,
Oh, ain't exactly the weapon of choice.
you avoid fall damage. And then you sit on the bench there,
Like it, I guess.
and that way you trigger the cutscene. And when you get out of the cutscene, or the dialogue, more like,
Just like
you actually will have free movement.
weird.
Because bench also locks your movement, and when you get out of the bench, it frees your movement. But that kind of carries over.
Inhale on the draw. Hold your breath for a moment.
And what you can use this free movement for is to buy the hazel bow that I bought earlier.
Draw it back more.
That will come useful later on.
Get the one
And then you can try to grind some vitality experience there. There is a bit of a spot where you can jump without jumping, but still gaining experience. But that is what you want to try to do. And then you talk to Bernard and choose the middle dialogue option. And he will keep giving you one braces and very light bows. And you want to pick them up until you...
Got enough talk. There's the target.
Well, you want to get
Surely.
at least 12 of them. I usually get 13. You can kind of see it from how much you're carrying, like how overburdened you are. And then the archery contest, you still have free movement, so you can just move away,
Don't weaken the knees, have you?
and that'll end it instantly.
Okay, good start. Keep going.
And this is why I keep my stamina low in the early sections of the game.
That's fast.
That'll make dying here faster. Now you want to drop all those 13 very light bows that you have,
Happy with that.
because they are actually quite heavy altogether. And you can't really sell them for anything. Then fast traveling here and using the horse to get to the bailiff is the way to go.
Good movement. And bailiff is here.
The bailiff can be on that other chair, or he can be walking towards the other room. In that case, you probably won't be able to talk to him until he gets through the doors. So you need to kind of wait for him. So that's considered kind of bad RNG there. Here you have to wait until 11 for Nightingale to appear here. And be able to start the patrol. And during the patrol, there isn't much happening. You just try to find some spots where you can grind vitality. So you can watch my stamina bar, like when I get next to a wall, for example. I try to kind of get stuck somewhere so that I can keep jumping really fast. You want to sell your one braces and the necklace to the tailor and buy a black pour point. That will be needed later on to persuade Goodwin so that you don't need to go drink with him. Simply the extra charisma that you get from it. You could get it with some other means as well, but considering I do want to get the money from the tailor anyway, as he does give the best prices for that equipment. Choosing the bottom dialogue here ends this very quickly, but there would be a long dialogue from Nightingale and the merchant coming up. But if you talk to the merchant when like Nightingale starts to engage with him, you can skip all of that dialogue.
It's a bit of a shithole.
Hey to you too.
So that is, I believe, the fastest way to progress through that argument there. When he starts talking about Hans's father, old Jeske or whatever, you can go grab some food from that pot. At this point you want to eat from like all the pots that you come across without wasting much time. And during the patrol you of course do not waste any time by doing so. I'm always kind of trying new places where I can grind vitality. You don't have to be super optimal here, but you do want to have a couple good places. This is one reliable place for the most part. Like you can watch on the right side of the screen all that vitality experience popping up.
Hey, one more.
Usually there's time to do this 3 times safely.
Good experience.
You might be able to pull off 4 as well, but depends on the situation.
I have to eat something.
All this experience grinding is not strict, you just need to get enough of it all together, and there are some different ways to gain it.
I heard he even keeps the poor lass locked up at home all day.
It is truly important not to let Nightingale get too far away from you,
See that filthy
because it does waste something like maybe 15 seconds for him to
Unfortunately, the beggar
Like we're
is
waiting for him to start walking again.
well.
There's a long dialogue again that you can skip by talking to the beggar there. Sometimes the beggar is not there though, which is the better alternative. Especially because if the beggar is there, Nightingale will not follow the road but rather walk on the grass. And when he's doing so, he does walk really slowly for some reason.
Okay,
But most of the time the beggar is there, so you need to be
are some good timings.
prepared for that.
I feel quite hungry.
So here you don't need to really worry about where Nightingale is walking. You can just get next to the blacksmith and you buy the noble horseshoe and 40 piercing arrows.
That much money. Like, why do I have more money now than?
If there was a way to get more money, you could buy the military horseshoe, which would give your horse more movement speed, and that'd be good. But I don't have any convenient ways to gain that bit of extra money. But the noble horseshoe will do quite fine. You can let Nightingale get pretty far away until this point. Like you saw him stopping there for a second.
Nightingale. Okay,
If at that point you were too far away, he would start waiting for you, which is not what you want. But before that, when he leaves from the blacksmith, there are no points where he starts waiting for you until then.
But not necessarily immediately.
And you also saw Nightingale getting stuck there a little. If that happens, you want to try to look away, and that allows him to teleport when he gets stuck.
Like if you get lucky.
This tower was only half the size when I was a young lad. Sir Hanush had it extended and made into an armory.
Like maybe if you get lucky, he'll like the teleporting could be faster than just walking. That doesn't sound too like unlikely, but it would be very difficult to intentionally try to do. What the crap is this pig doing here?
So you could potentially try to get some experience from the pig there.
I don't want to take the risk
But
of getting
if
a
you...
bounty from that.
Usually you don't get a bounty, but it's possible, so you don't really want that. Here's a long dialogue that you can skip by doing this. You bump into him right before Nightingale starts talking to him, so that he will be like saying that line when Nightingale tries to talk to him, and that'll skip the dialogue. And here the dialogue skip is a bit more complicated. If Nightingale is just about near, and this lazy god starts the drinking animation, you should start punching him. Just keep punching him as much as you can. And after that you try to surrender and pay the fine as fast as you can, so that you can progress the story. You cannot have bounty going into the cutscene. That will softlock the game.
And you get extra experience.
If for some reason you still remain in combat, that is okay. It's okay to be in combat there, but having a bounty will softlock your game. And now that you'll be riding your horse here, you want to have the horseshoe on. And while I'm at it, I put on the black power point. But you do have to be careful not to like damage it, because that could be problematic later on. So here, instead of fighting Hans, you can just ride away. This is basically where you need to be for the next portion of the game.
Why is it taking so long?
Usually the cutscene triggers faster, but Hans was chasing me really far, and that somehow like can prolong the cutscene trigger from happening.
And if it's like chasing you, then
So that cutscene and all of that, it won't like teleport you anywhere. You'll stay right where you were. So that's why running here with your horse is useful.
which is bad.
You wait until dawn.
What?
And talk to Hans, and
In combat?
then something funny happened. For some reason, there's a bounty on me, so I need to pay this off. You want to have a bit of extra gold on you,
Get something to eat.
because
This is why having some extra gold is nice.
stupid stuff like this happens from time to time. I don't have an explanation for,
It's the opposite of
them.
nice to you.
but the bounties are always small, so you can pay them off. Now here, optimally, you would get that encounter, but you don't go to it, but rather you just press escape
Why?
there at the inn. But for some reason it did not work this time,
Like
and I do not have an explanation for that, nor the glitch in the first place. Like for
okay. My horse is not scared.
like how you can cancel the fast travel
This crap.
that way. I don't have explanations for either of those, but the fastest way to get to
No,
the
it
inn
isn't.
would be to get that wayfarer there, or a foe earlier, and then get away from them, and just press escape when you're near the inn when fast traveling. That should work, but this time it did not.
Because I can,
If you want to be safe, you just kind of go to any encounter that you get on the way,
like out of combat,
and then
and it's looking pretty safe.
you want to get the inn waypoint if you possibly can.
Horse is good.
If you can get the Neuhof waypoint as well, that doesn't hurt. But you don't want to waste too much time getting it.
But then after just a moment,
If you're really unlucky, you will just end up traveling all the way to Talmberg without encounters.
I do not
Lately it
understand.
has been really rare for me, but it does happen sometimes. If that happens, I think the best you can do is just ride your horse to this hunting spot. And ignore getting all the fast travel points.
Selection trick did not work this time.
Instead, when
I thought it was true.
you need to go to Neuhof, you just try your luck again
If you get a wayfarer,
and try going to Talmberg
and then you just press escape.
in fast travel. And I hope you get encounters.
At some point during fast travel.
And at that point, you
At
do
least if
want
don't get
the
any other
inn
encounters,
at the glade fast travel point, if at all possible.
should be perfectly reliable. Or that's what I thought, but apparently it isn't.
If you get really unlucky, you just
Put
need
my horse
to
there.
ride your horse a long time,
Horse
and
to come to me and he
it
goes
will
there.
waste a few minutes.
Okay.
Which is really not good if you're going for record runs. but in something like a marathon setting, it's something that you can definitely do as a backup.
Like the trick actually worked that time.
Here when you wait just a short while, Hans will teleport here. So you can come here, you can equip the bow and piercing arrows and start waiting, and you'll hit the cutscene just by doing that.
But I'm quite a bit ahead, so that's fine.
This fight can be a bit troublesome sometimes.
As long as I can
You can kind of see it happening here.
do this fight decently.
Kind of failed my first shot there, but my second shot was spot on and killed him. If you're lucky, you can one-shot that guy.
He shot me back, unfortunately.
And here,
What was that? Why did he
this
not
did
like-
not go too well.
Oh, he got wounded.
Because I actually wounded him,
Not fully charging the
and that
shot.
ended up being quite a problem for me.
And that's actually really bad for me, because now he keeps moving and shooting me, and it keeps like canceling my shots, and or not really canceling, but makes me shake, and he's moving, and
Yeah, so that was kind of a problematic situation.
it's really
Yeah,
difficult.
generally, combat in this speedrun,
Here.
a lot of things can happen and go wrong, and you need to like make some stuff up on the
Every
go
year.
a lot of the time. You really just can't.
I've got a bounty again.
You really just can't avoid
bounties in one run.
really weird stuff happening to you during a speedrun of this game, but
End.
usually you can just kind of
Anyway, I can use that foe.
get through them.
To do this.
Anyway, the fast travel trick worked here. I got the foe encounter, and that allowed me
However, I
to
have money to pay that bounty. If I do not, I
cancel fast travel here near Neuhof.
need to
And
check
I
how
cancel
much
it
I
in a spot to
have.
get the fast travel point, but then be as close to this area as possible.
Oh, the
This is where you can get the hoof
bandit is
pick.
not even here. Okay. I have
If you
quite a
get
bit
here
of
really
money,
fast, the bandits won't be here yet. In that case, you need to wait a while.
I got here so quickly that I actually have to wait a while for these guys to appear here.
This might glitch the game in a way that the bandit that's supposed to be lying down is actually just standing up, and glitched there. But it doesn't really matter, either way you shoot him in the face. Or you could knock him out some other way,
Could
or
you give me the
you just need to get the hoof pick off of him.
animation,
Wait, so who?
please?
Someone in Neuhof must know more about it.
Because I got lucky and I have the Neuhof fast travel point, I can do this. And because I got extra lucky, I got the cutscene trigger,
That is the fastest
but that will
possible
teleport me straight
thing.
here. But this is absolutely optimal. This has never happened to me before.
I wonder if I still have a bounty, because
In a usual scenario,
now
though, you would just ride your horse to Neuhof,
for some reason
and that'd be something like
expected.
30 seconds slower than what I got here.
Ah, nice.
You there! Stop!
So I got another random bounty here for some reason. I tried to escape
Apparently,
in hopes that the bounty would go away while I'm
chase me.
doing this
But it's
quest
only
and
30 gold, luckily.
other stuff, but that didn't really succeed. And I had the extra
Tried to
gold, so
escape in hopes of
I just paid the bounty and
not having to do that.
now
at
I can
all,
be
but
off.
that's
And this is
probably
where
a bad
the
idea.
in fast travel point also comes in handy.
Why was my horse turning so quickly?
At this point you can just go find Ginger, you don't need to go ask for him anywhere. Like ask about his whereabouts, any of
Anyway,
that
I'm
stuff.
quite a bit ahead. I got all the
Yeah, you can go straight
fast travel points that I
to
need
Ginger. You
have.
just need to know where he is. You fast travel to the inn, and then you start traveling pretty much north,
And all the other stuff that I
and just a little bit
also
west.
need to have. I think anything's really
And you can see this, like,
wrong at the
you can
moment.
see this camp here. You just go here and talk to Ginger. This dialogue, you just choose the bottom options
Leave anything out.
3 times, and then the top option.
Get out of here.
But there aren't many dialogues that you can actually mess up in a big way.
You know,
Usually you just get a bit of extra dialogue that you need to go through, wasting a
I even
couple of
got
seconds,
the
but
energy and nourishment refill that I haven't been getting.
here I was talking about,
Past
Oh.
few attempts.
like, I noticed that my energy and nourishment
Losing a bit of
was
time because
really
of that
good.
bullshit
And that was
around
because
thing, but
after the fight,
okay.
like after the cutscenes when saving Hans from the humans, the game refills your nourishment and energy. Usually,
Minute
it should,
here is
but sometimes it
okay.
does not. And if it does not, you're not in a very good situation here. You need to kind of do some sort of backup strat in
More
that case.
colonies. I usually don't get anything here.
Usually what I do, I might eat from the pot at Goodwin's house
Good.
and also sleep
I even have some daylight. That's
in his house. You can just sleep on a bench, and because you have the Wanderer perk, you actually have like 70% comfort there.
That
It's really useful.
I can find Goodwin in the church.
Here I am just trying to get to Usids as fast as possible.
And there are
For all
never
this
any
traveling, I
doors
have tried to come up
to get
with
there,
stuff to make it faster.
at least during the
One thing that you can sort of try to do
morning as well.
is you can
I don't know if
drink
it's
enough
morning,
to
night,
pass
I
out,
doubt it, but
and then hope that you will end up
I
in
wish
some
I
useful
hadn't
place.
tested.
Like if you do it early, you could hope that you end up in Neuhof or Usids or Pribyslavitz. I've ended up near all of those places sometimes,
To
but
cutscene.
as you might expect, it's not at all reliable. There are also, I fast traveled to the cutscene there. You need to get close enough so that the route will actually go through the cutscene trigger. If you're early enough, Goodwin will be here in the church. If you're a bit late, he will be in his house instead.
Now let's do the dialogue.
This is kind of
correctly,
easier if he's
and
here.
this is success.
You need to remember to have that black power point and use an armor potion here,
Saved
and
quite
choose the
a bit
charisma
here,
option for persuading him.
probably because
If you
last
have
time we
at
got
least 13
messy
charisma,
Lexingtons were
that
allowed,
will be enough to persuade him.
stuff like that.
So you can use some other method for gaining enough charisma. If, for example, your black power point was damaged, what you could do is, if you still have the armor potion,
Actually see anything?
I think you could try to get a drunkenness
Kinda wanna
bonus.
Try and get through here. without
That can
having to
boost your
wait,
charisma a
because
little
it's
bit.
obviously a time waster.
You then also need to be mindful of the fact that if you are hungry, that will affect your charisma.
And it went
You want to make sure you have enough to persuade him, otherwise you're in trouble.
honestly.
It is really difficult to recover from like failing the persuasion attempt there.
Pretty big time save here as well.
But if you do things right,
2 minutes ahead.
that there is not really any risk involved. You just need to not forget these couple important things.
It's great. I'll wait until...
Of course, one form of backup is to just go drinking with him. Just kind of
don't want to
inconvenient, but that is one way to keep going if you really want to continue
section is
your
a bit
run.
confusing to navigate. If you ask me.
The fast travel to Ravna,
In particular, you can see where.
oh, well, I didn't really explain the finding Creaky,
Oh, I can't believe it
but that is another case of just knowing where he is
happened.
and going there. And after that you need to go to
Even though that is,
Pribyslavitz.
like, just straight up
There are
below.
other options like finding Timmy, but if you just go to Pribyslavitz, that will check the objective and you can proceed.
Going that near of the tree.
Going there from Ravna is the fastest. I kind of like to avoid the path there because sometimes there can be bandits
Good.
setting up an ambush and your horse might get scared of them and
Get
throw you off.
like
And that really slows you down. That's
Oh,
not
here
what
that
you
I-
want.
avoid. So then I can.
You
cancel
can't
the
just
path
travel
here.
Northeast
Unfortunately, not a possibility
From-
this time.
Ravna. And you should end up near Pribyslavitz. Here also, yeah, you can sometimes save time with a lucky
There.
foe encounter, so you can cancel the fast traveling earlier.
Thought I was done with the dialogue.
But that doesn't happen too often.
Grab some food.
Eating from pot at this point is kind of optional, but you do want to eat from
Have
pots
eaten too much,
here and
but
there during the run.
it doesn't matter.
Now we're going back to Pribyslavitz. This is because the
Especially because I'm
current
traveling right
quest,
now.
it's a new quest, but first you just needed to find out where Pribyslavitz is,
Non-issue.
and then you need to scout Pribyslavitz. But this time we need to go a bit further. You can just gallop through everything and get just about here. And you can see the quest objective is there near Merhead. That means you're done, and you can get out and just start fast traveling.
Here. I guess that's fine by me.
There's another opportunity for you to get that foe encounter and cancel the fast travel early. But I don't really ever expect to get them.
And Radzik is there.
Radzik is always in random places, you just need to find him. Got
That
pretty
was
lucky with where he
really
was.
laggy right now. I guess that's okay.
You only need to mention those two things from your scouting to Radzik.
But
The other stuff doesn't matter at all.
I forget.
So I picked up the Burgar perk. I don't know how to pronounce it.
A bit of a waste.
That will be quite useful in many situations, giving you extra stats,
For a couple points.
allowing you to use better weapons earlier.
Just open.
And also, I guess, deal some extra damage and
I haven't seen that
move a little bit
animation
faster
before,
and all that.
in general.
So Davis is quite random,
Why can't I talk to you?
and here he trolled me
Oh my
pretty hard.
gosh, I can't believe.
I tried to go and talk to him while he was in the battlement,
Oh,
but he
gosh,
just
that's
decided to
the worst thing
get out of there.
that I could imagine. I was supposed to be able to speak to him.
And I couldn't talk to him at all, and he locked me out. And he went to his own room.
He might have even went to his room and locked the door. I think he's there. Because he couldn't
And
have
that
gone
door,
upstairs
he
already.
likes to lock it sometimes, so you can't go in.
But now he's upstairs.
But then you need to
Gosh,
wait
why?
a while.
Divish.
During the day, you often
Dang, I
find
hate this
him here upstairs praying,
Absolutely the worst.
but it's pretty random. He can be wherever.
The worst character
Honestly.
in this game.
So unfortunately, I probably lost like 1 minute to that.
Luckily I saved some time.
That's quite an unusually bad scenario. Never happened before.
I basically lost like 1 minute due to just Divish bullshit there.
We'll approach from the south and storm them over the bridge.
So I can't really say that I like that.
So this is the Pribyslavitz battle. This is the first big battle of the game. You want to use the bow to start with. First you can try shooting these archers, but
Didn't kill that guy.
kinda like optional to put it that way. If you can get an extra kill, that gives you 15 experience,
Enough to
vitality experience per kill. Always good.
no way, I can't use that yet.
You want to keep using the basic villager's ash bow here. I was thinking I maybe had the stats for hazel bow, but I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not really achieving anything.
So you want to try and get some kills here before your allies even arrive, but I kind of messed this up a little. And it ended up being quite slow.
What's this freaking bandit?
However, my allies did quite a good job for a change.
Just lying on the ground and
It wasn't too
blocking
bad.
my movement.
So I like to pick up the hunting spear here. It's pretty handy in the next part.
Well, this is fine.
Theoretically,
It's going just fine.
the bow has the most potential here, because if you shoot someone in the face, they basically just die right away. And you could already be shooting. However, that does use up arrows, and it is quite unreliable. And with the hunting spear, you can also usually get more hits in, giving you more experience.
Why did that not hit? It basically just went through him.
Quite often you can get quite a few killing blows as well,
I guess that's fine.
giving you pretty sweet vitality experience. But using a regular sword is not quite the same thing as using the spear here. Polearms in this game deal a lot of damage. However, they do limit your ability to block. You need to kind of stay behind your allies and avoid being targeted altogether.
Okay. That wasn't... That wasn't very good, but it's fine.
So I got hit there a little bit. And this fight can be a little dangerous, so
getting strength and agility levels here. But
as long as you have
I can't use the hazel bow.
one of those marigold decoctions,
So far.
you should use one here if you have taken damage.
The hazel bow.
You can also use the dried food to regain some of your health back.
Yeah, speaking of which, I will equip it here.
If you end up overeating, that's really no big deal. Anyway, at this point you can equip the hazel bow.
Right away. Somehow missing that shot.
At least I've always been able to. If you get really unlucky with your experience, maybe you can't, but
Now
that wouldn't
actually
even be a
tries
big deal.
aggroing on
If enemies aggro on you, then you kind of want to get up here, because then they usually can't attack you.
and moving just
I sometimes get hit
when I'm
a
about
couple
to do
times,
that, I can't hit him in the face.
but not really anything more than that.
Somehow that actually killed. And that too.
I got kind of unlucky here, like at the start, but then I managed to get a few good kills quite quickly. And here I'm picking up some extra arrows, because, well, those will be needed, especially in this part. And also a little bit later on.
Hopefully no bullshit here.
You want to run along the wall. Make sure you have enough stamina going in.
I made it.
And then take that route here, and the enemies can't reach you. And then just try and aim for the faces. And try and kill as many of them as possible.
That looked off.
If you are decent with the bow, you should be able to get kills here pretty quickly. And during this time, your allies are fighting the remaining enemies. And most of those enemies are quite heavily armored anyway.
Okay, good stuff.
So you can't really damage them that much with the bow. While here you can get
Is the tent
one-shot kills.
I didn't think it should be, but okay.
And of course you'll always get the last killing blow, so you get the good experience from it.
You shoot this guy out of the way.
Sometimes these guys won't be here at this point. In that case you need to kind of
Archer
get out
there.
here and wait for them to come to you and then go back to that spot. Here you want to be careful, because there's one archer on the walls that's constantly trying to shoot you. He can be very annoying.
Unusual and
If he hits you, you
unfortunate.
usually
Okay, I
end
got
up
rid of
really low on health and bleeding. Which is a pretty bad situation. You could potentially die.
Okay.
You need to get rid of that guy. And after that you'll basically be safe. You want to loot that rage potion from that particular guy there. It'll be useful later on in the last fight of the game in particular. Then helping your allies is useful. I don't know if it significantly speeds up the fight, but at least it's also an opportunity to gain experience.
Loot this stuff.
So you want to look for the most armored bodies here.
Freaking kill that guy. I need to loot him.
So you can loot the most valuable armor off of them to sell later on. You want to get something like 3 items
On everything.
that are worth about 1k or more. The gist is that you need to have 1000 gold later on.
That should do.
So make sure you can achieve that.
Let's see if I can get any extra kills here.
You also want to pick up a few of those better piercing arrows or
What's that guy doing?
other really good arrows that you can find.
He really surprised me there.
Having a few of them is good later on in the run.
I should have the stuff to sell.
And here's the kind of boss fight in the game. Sometimes he can like combo you really bad,
Later on.
and you might die here. But the save point is right there, so it's no big deal. However, this time I got really lucky. You can also kind of go to the very side of the arena, and if it's far enough when you're going there, that might allow you to get his AI kind of stuck. And he'll just be standing there and you can just aim and shoot his face,
Fights
and that'll end the fight.
or in the speedrun anyway.
I have like once also gotten a soft lock there after killing
I'm
him.
really glad that it did
If that happens,
as well
then
as it did.
also you just reload the save and try again.
I'm not sure how many arrows I have left, but
So now the next quest,
enough.
here we should
And also
kind of
have some better
figure out
piercing
what's
arrows.
troubling the people in Merhoyed,
Get rid of
and also get some
or
information from
whoever
Bandit, who's also sick, right?
Yeah,
Like
in this
most of people there. But we can't access that information just by walking in and talking to that guy.
What am I doing?
But the bandit does
Oh,
carry a
really,
note,
like,
and if you pick up that note, you can progress in the quest.
merchant. That's now where I'm supposed
And
to go
to
now.
get to that bandit, you need to get inside this spawn here,
Oh no. I missed it.
for which I have this glitch here.
No big deal.
You run from here, you start unmounting while you can't unmount to the left of you, which is the default. You will unmount to the right of you. And while you're unmounting, you'll travel next to the door. And you will clip
Good.
right through it.
Killing
And
that bandit.
after that you shoot the bandit in the face.
Managed to do it
And
quickly
you want to
because
kind of
giving me
push him a
trouble.
little bit. Because
It makes up for not
there's like the game only wants to give you the option to inspect. And it's difficult to actually get the option to loot the bandit. Unless you push him a little bit out of that spot there.
My nourishment has been really high throughout the run, honestly.
Sometimes when that section goes slowly, the guard might give you some trouble.
Wait until like
But you have a couple options. Sometimes you can
3
pay the
here
bounty,
and-
or you can also shoot the god in the face.
So when I fast travel,
It's usually not very difficult to do. And then you can take your sweet time just
when I arrive
killing the
at
bandit and looting him.
destination, it should be
So here you have to wait a little bit for Radzig to arrive here, and you talk about the events in Merhayed. Give him the note that you picked up, and then you advance to the next quest here. And the next quest here, it's usually a really long quest where you need to
yeah. This is pretty good.
find out
Decent daylight.
what all is happening and like go through many phases, and in the end
Making sure
find
I'm
out where
not
this
lost in the darkness.
mine is, where we are going right now. So we're pretty much going straight to the end of this quest.
Who's that? I've never seen anyone there.
Before going in, you want to jot down that bod potion, and also make sure you have that highborn
Meditate
speech
some
perk.
of this stuff. And drink the bar potion.
These two in combination allow you to persuade Jacek,
And now
so that you don't have to fight him. Not only does that make this section faster, it also makes it much safer. If you were unable to persuade him, you would need to shoot him instead. Which can be fast if you do it right, but it's very unreliable. Getting a bod potion is not difficult, because you kinda need to get an armor potion anyway.
success.
You just gotta choose that speech option for persuasion, and you'll be done with it. Now what I want to do is I'll actually ride the horse to get the Vronic fast travel point.
Like it might
I don't
be
need to go
time
there yet, but later I will.
take this route here.
And I go pick that up now because the game throws you, well, as near
I've previously done
as you can get to Vronic without traveling manually.
yeah, you kind of
So practically it doesn't waste any additional time. You can just start riding your horse right away, take the fastest route there. And this also does, I believe, make the fast travel here shorter, saving a bit of time. And later on, you will also be able to kind of have a more straightforward approach to traveling there.
Now I'll wait for.
Now we need to talk to Radzig,
And I found.
and for that you want to keep waiting a really short amount of time,
Do it is
multiple times.
to repeatedly wait for.
You could also try waiting
Each time
something like
going to
4
take
hours.
some
That
distance.
sometimes works, but sometimes doesn't. Sometimes you might need to wait 6 hours or something. And while that does
For
kind
some
of
reason,
work
it's not
as well, well, first of all, for the in-game
moving
timer,
as much as it should
this is a faster method.
right now.
But also there's
I'm
the
sure he'll be here.
side to it
Yeah.
that
He's coming closer.
this way the in-game time doesn't advance as much And that will be quite useful later on. You will see why.
Yeah.
First thing is that you can still sell some of that stuff that
Yeah, he's
that
riding on
you
his horse,
picked up
so
from Pribyslavitz, because the shops
can I
are
talk
open.
to him?
So this was also an unusual scenario that Radzik was on his horse here.
Before, and
That has never happened to me
somehow
before,
screws me over situation.
but how I decided to deal with that,
I guess I need to keep waiting until he...
how I decided to deal with it
Here,
is just wait a bit more and see where he goes.
unexpected, but it's okay.
So I happened to find him there. Luckily there's the objective marker that you can follow either way. Now I go to the armor to sell some of my stuff and make sure I have over 1k gold. If something goes wrong and you can't do this, then you just need to follow the quest marker and go pick up the key for the SX cell. But for this strat, you can kind of lean down a little next to the door while using your bow, and that allows you to shoot kind of through the door. And you need to shoot at the Ezek, well, kind of near him. You can't really shoot straight at him, but just near him. And that will make him run. And the only way for him to run is out of the door, which he can open, even though he's the prisoner. However, the god will chase you. The god might not always be there, but you will get a bounty regardless.
Okay. Be better about...
If the god is not there, you can talk to Jezek while he's trying to run away, but you have to be careful not to let him kind of get away, because he can run pretty fast. And in that case, you just need to... some god is going to come after you later on, pretty much guaranteed, and when that happens, you just pay the bounty and go to Radzik, talk to him, and proceed. So now that longest quest of the game is finished in 5 minutes and 14 seconds of game time, in my case. I like to eat from the pot here. And then you kind of have to be careful with this dialogue. It's a bit tricky. You can't really mash through it. You need to ask if they need help and then say that that's all you need and end dialogue, and you need to check on that guy and then ask about him and then say that you will straighten his leg, and then you just go ahead and do it. There are multiple ways for you to gain the information needed to proceed to the next quest, and I find this to easily be the fastest method. Once the leg is straightened, you just need to wait any amount of time, and after that you can talk to this guy and just match the dialogue, and that'll not finish the quest, but and now you can move on to the Sasau church, where you will meet the bandits that will sort of give you the next quest. And the key is that you need to be at the church at night. Anything after 10 is okay. I don't know the exact like upper limit, to put it that way, but at 5 I would suspect. Like, yeah, you need to be there before 5 at least. Otherwise, you need to wait a whole day. And if you need to do that,
Okay, apparently
you do
that was
want
the best
to
way.
sleep on a bed. Otherwise, you end up being so tired afterwards that your stamina will be really slow and Henry's eyes will keep closing. They will not stay open. And that is quite troublesome. Okay, so next up, we need to kill just one guy with white robes in the monastery. There's 4 of them there. They're the novices. So to do that, we need to get inside the monastery. There's usually a bush here. I mean, it's still there, but you can't see it. For some reason, it doesn't always render properly.
This will not do it.
Regardless, you just get here and with your horse, just run towards the wall and then turn slightly.
For a while
And
there, it
then
looked like it was
try
not
to
gonna
unmount
work, but
all the time. And at some point the game will allow you to unmount when it thinks that there's enough space. And then
that should be a
if you're close enough to the wall, you will actually clip through it. Then you jump over the kind of
but an additional
invisible wall,
random
you
shot.
could say.
Make that happen right away.
And the
How did these guys figure out that
people in the monastery will be dining
find that a bit
between 6 and 7, so you want to wait until 6, preferably before you go inside. I have found there are sometimes some issues
really
if
is
you
no reason to,
wait when you're already
like,
there.
shoot him again if I'm using the hazel bow.
And then from
and better
below,
piercing arrows.
you just look for one guy with white robes
That could be it.
and using the hazel bow
Uh,
or better
then
bow
it might not be a bad idea. to
and a decent arrow. I believe just wounding arrows,
it's
for
working
example, should do.
correctly.
Piercing arrows, maybe. I haven't tested everything thoroughly, but from previous lobbies, you can always pick up some
got
better
that
piercing
safe
arrows
setup.
and use those.
I really shouldn't. There's no reason.
And
to.
I played it safe there, but you only need to hit him once. A full charge shot with the hazel bow and a better piercing arrow.
You mean like your first
One shot is
playthrough, or
always enough.
Have you tried?
It will cause
speedrunning the game?
the target to bleed. So he doesn't die immediately, but he will die later. So you can just get out and head to Ronick and he will die at some point. And you can just proceed with the game. But I find it a bit scary to just trust that and keep going, so I'd like to take a few seconds just to make sure
Animations there.
that I get the kill. So here in Vronic, there's a soft lock that should hopefully be fixed in future patches, but to avoid the soft lock, to be safe, you want to wait
Okay, so what do you mean
until the
That's
next
something.
morning before
by, quite sure what you mean by
you go talk to Eric. So I like to eat from the pot and sleep on the bed, keep my nourishment and energy high enough, and then wait. I think I wait until 9
that
here.
should be safe for sure.
So now after waiting, you can just go talk to Eric
Waiting, but I don't mess
as
around
you
with
normally
running.
would.
Ones too.
It's like having a good run, being 2 minutes ahead here, and then getting soft locked in running. That'd be a nightmare. Honestly, I don't want any of that.
So you can just mash through that dialogue as well.
Happen, but
And now head to the
my
training
so far, it
ground.
shouldn't.
You got this familiar face Vanya here. And this is where the soft lock would happen. Like instead of getting into this like combat training thing, instead nothing happens. And afterwards you can't do anything to fix it.
I missed it.
In this fight, the fastest way to proceed
Attacking me.
would be to
Pretty much messed that up.
just shoot him in the face
Okay, you want
Once.
to go a bit slow.
and finish him with that.
Yeah, in that.
However, it can be a bit tricky to
my
pull
first
off,
playthrough
or at least I'm not that good at it.
in Monastery.
But luckily, most of the time Eric will
Out once
beat you up really quickly if you
because I was
don't
like,
manage to
neglecting
shoot
my
him.
daily duties or something.
So it's not a big deal. Either way, you'll get to
But, I
proceed
honestly just
quite
uploaded,
quickly. So you gotta choose the dialogue
did a
to
previous save because I didn't want to do
that. Let's go then. If you choose the bottom dialogue, it's simply a time waster.
I didn't really
Zizek will
normally
leave, and then you have to wait for him to like
load
kind of
saves if things went wrong.
uh, ask again.
in
sort of.
Monastery, I did do that at least.
But anyway, here you just run there and activate. And I usually take this path. This isn't the only path you can take.
What? I got out of combat.
And after you get out of combat,
Wow, that was good luck.
it can vary quite a bit how long it takes to get out of combat. But once you do,
Oh, cutscene.
usually when you start waiting, Spizek will just come to you
Lately I've
and initiate dialogue.
run for
So you don't need to run to him, which saves a lot of time.
ages before
And for that dialogue, you can just mash.
I got out of combat. Yeah, 20 seconds. It's pretty nice. I'll definitely take
Here,
that.
if for some reason you are too low on energy, you really want to sleep on the bed right there before coming out of the room at all. Because later on you don't have any opportunity to sleep before the upcoming battle. But otherwise you just run out. You need to pick up the key from Bernard. And with the key you can go pick up equipment from the chest. I do believe that picking up the equipment is not
Hopefully no encounters. because I
necessary.
discovered that you can get encounters here as well.
However, it is quite useful,
Probably should
as
have
otherwise you
that
wouldn't really have a weapon to begin with.
from one of the pods on the way.
I have some theory that you
But I
could
wouldn't have to, but
just pick up a
I'm starting to get a bit hungry.
weapon, like from the first enemy that dies, for example. However, there is the side to it that, along with weapons and armor, there's also 3 Lazarus potions and a good bow to use in the final fight. And like a potion that boosts your bow skill. So those will also come in handy. So altogether, it should be in your best interest to pick up the equipment from the chest. Anyway, you don't want to waste time here. You just
So slightly
go to that room. It's always the same. You just go to that room and you will hit the cutscene.
Kind of decided that you don't really need to put on armor.
You don't need
for
to
this fight.
find Divish, he's always there.
Say enemies simply do not aggro on you here, so you really don't need armor.
So this is sort of the second
And
big
without
fight
armor,
in the
you're going
game.
to run faster. And that's gonna
However, it's kind of designed to be a relatively easy
a little bit
fight,
here and
I guess, or actually
in nitrate, and in nitrate
more than
it also
relatively
allows you to
supposed to be
grind some EXP faster.
almost unlosable. And that is because
And
the
what also helps in
enemy AI in this fight simply does not target you.
all you do in that quest is run.
Only if you kind of get isolated,
But anyway,
like you're alone with an enemy and you attack him or try to attack him. Sometimes they might like
really useful to
counter-attack, but usually afterwards they will just run away to fight your allies instead.
move.
So you don't really need any armor here, you just equip the sword and just go ham on the enemies. You want to try to attack enemies that your allies are also attacking for maximum efficiency. You see, it is a bit slow for you to take down enemies on your own, as the key to dealing the most damage is definitely
Why is everyone getting in my way?
depleting the enemy's stamina. During this fight you want to pick up some food from these enemies so that you can avoid
Want to do?
some extra trips to
Yeah, like
eating from pots, and it's easier to keep the balanced diet buff on.
I didn't get.
The balanced diet works in a way that if you're 2 days
I think the next fight you have to be a little more careful.
without getting too hungry or overeating,
Most
you will
of
get
the
a buff.
enemies have pole arms.
So you kind of want
They
to
just
have that
suddenly decide
on
to
for
follow
the
you,
bigger
like,
fights, if possible.
Just die instantly.
That section you're supposed to secure the ground, but all you need to do is you just need to run
Happen,
to the end and that will finish it.
Get some.
So I decided to take the Brute perk here, increasing my strength.
But anyway, it's like pretty.
It doesn't really matter that much when you pick it up. Maybe I should have gotten it earlier.
You just don't want to get like.
The agility perk featherweight doesn't really matter, but I usually end up picking it up anyway.
As long as
So if you can get a pole arm
targets
in this section, as most of these enemies do have pole arms, it shouldn't be too difficult. Definitely pick one up. Here I especially found out that the spear
luckily got this
is
spear,
really
and
effective.
I've been dealing massive damage with this.
I'm not sure if I missed any of these
Hit almost
stabs that I did with the spear, and that can't be said of all the different pole arms. Often I end up, especially in this fight, I end up missing a lot of my attacks. But with this spear it went really well and I took down the enemies very fast. And you can keep the spear for this upcoming fight as well. Kinda want to be a little careful here at the start. The enemies might attack you when they don't have anyone else to attack yet. After that you want to try and get in a good position.
It's really good. Like it's so easy to hit with this weapon. It's nice. I'm into this weapon. Better than other pole arms, I think.
So with the spear or some other polearm, you can
It deals massive
quite
damage
easily
when you stab.
take on enemies even on your own. You don't necessarily need to rely on your allies.
Yeah, I just destroyed them with that spear. That's crazy.
Of course, it is still more effective to kind of chain attack with your allies if
Spear some other
possible.
time as well.
You gotta pick up that note. You don't have to pick up your own stuff. But I do have some good potions
I'll eat some of this stuff.
and a
here
good bow there that I can use.
now, and I'll
Here I decided to,
drop this.
as I got over encumbered, I decided to eat some of my food
I had to do that.
and drop
uh,
something
menu
so
there,
I would fix that issue.
I guess, but
And also fill my nourishment a bit as I was doing a menu anyway.
it'll save some time from later, I believe.
Otherwise you'd have to kind of do a separate menu later on in the run.
Okay, 10 seconds of time saving running. This pretty good.
In this quest here you just need to run up here. You completely ignore all the enemies. You kind of want to jump there to avoid a tackle from that enemy. And then
Quite hard there.
activate the... I don't know what that's called, but
I haven't seen that happen
Anyway.
before.
open the gate there. And that will finish that whole quest. So the whole quest has 15 seconds of gameplay if you do it quickly.
Nitrate,
And after that you just talk to
the cutscenes,
Crowbarb here, just mash the dialogue
2 cutscenes.
and proceed.
No, only 1 cutscene? I thought there was 2. Whatever, man.
And now you have to wait like more than a minute. If there was some way to
But yeah, having no
uh,
armor
get on the
here is
battlements
also helpful.
faster,
You consume much less stamina by
that would
jumping.
let you skip this waiting here.
You get much more.
However, you
experience,
can
and
use
it's,
this
essential
time
to be able to get that.
for something. You can grind vitality experience. And this is one of the spots that you can use.
Or in the final siege.
Sometimes a bit tricky to find a good spot. But I do always end up gaining quite a bit of experience. And here it is really useful to not have all that armor. That way you will
Let's play it
consume
safe.
less stamina for each jump.
I get in position.
At that point you want to
No, I don't have to wait for this
get on
guy.
top of that rock as high as possible next to the ladders so you can grab them as soon as possible. And when you're higher up and you grab the ladders, you skip the animation. So this way you can also kind of get in front of the other guy so you don't need to wait for him to get up first. And when you get up, you just run and get their attention and run back to the ladders. And that quest will be
Then a
done
few
with
more,
that.
and then it's Rocketeer time.
Now you can just follow the quest marker, talk to Rhubarb.
Eat some food.
I do take my opportunity to eat from the pot that's nearby. Then talk to Fafar. Agreed to help with building the trebuchet.
I have eaten so much food.
And then head to the monastery. I apologize if you can't properly see all the dialogue options that I choose, but
Eat before
if you slow down the video,
when waiting for page
you
load.
should be able to see what I choose.
Some time.
In many cases, it's not a big deal if you don't choose exactly what I do.
Yeah, I can do this now.
Anyway, here I got a lucky foe encounter, and that allowed me to cancel the fast travel here. Because there's an entrance to this area there. It saves quite a bit of time in the end to get here.
I like these little.
And there you correct dialogue again and interact with the door. Top, bottom, bottom, and bottom, and bottom option.
Good encounters.
And this part is a bit random. You need to find Master Carol. He can be in different places. What I like to do is I wait for him to get to this specific place instead of like going looking for him.
Carol is quite often here.
I think this is the best course of action because
I don't think that's
you do need to wait until the night later on in this quest. So waiting here doesn't really lose you time.
He's here now. We'll make a backup.
So I'm starting to learn that at 2 o'clock Carol will be here to eat some food. Then I attempt to do the knockout glitch on him as well. I like to do a backup save there, just because if I were to mess this up, the last save is quite a time away. So that would completely kill the run if something got messed up there.
That's lucky.
And when you're waiting for him to get back up, it's also random where he will end up afterwards. But you can just follow the quest marker and find him.
No, that was lucky. That was really good. Quest has been going really well so far.
Yeah, it's important that yeah, you need to knock him out just to get money from him. That is the goal. Pick up all the money he has him, 50 groschen. And afterwards you can kind of bribe him when he wakes up. That is the goal there. Here you need to wait a bit past midnight. Something like 12:30. Seems to work reliably. However, I did encounter an unusual issue here.
Hey, get up.
You can notice that
why can I not use this door right now?
I cannot open this door.
Please allow me to use door.
So I was thinking maybe by waiting a little bit,
Please?
I could fix the issue. But that didn't seem to be the case.
This is kind of screwing me over right now.
I was kind of panicking here, but in the end I decided that I should try save and quit. Because that does fix a lot of glitches that you might encounter. So honestly, if you encounter a weird glitch that's somehow stopping you, pretty much the first thing you want to try is save and quit and get back in the game.
But I have no idea if I'll be able to deal with Pachar this night. If this is happening.
So yeah, you do not want to do any of this waiting that I did here. completely ignored that. That idea did not work.
I still can't do it. You know what? I'll save and quit. Maybe it's that kind of an issue. Should have done this.
So as long
earlier,
as you
though.
can save and quit,
'Cause now I have no idea how I
it doesn't really
can
waste
pay
much
for
of
this
that
time.
game time, because
So
that
I
time will be
actually
paused during that,
on the save and quit correctly, not quit.
and then you can just press continue in the main menu to get right back in.
Guess I'll find out in a moment.
Here you can see that the
It said open for like a
the
second.
option to open the door was there for
Try reloading the save.
some really short while. I think it's after
No,
I moved
this is
my
not the-
mouse, it went away.
I can't preload the save like that. This is really sketchy. And I have no control over...
So if you do save and quit, then
This is kind of
you
nightmare
cannot
situation
use
right
the
now.
load game menu to get back in. You need to quit the game again,
And then you just literally
and then
can't open the door that
you
you're
can load
supposed to be
the
able to open
kind of
without
save
any
and quit
problems.
save file. So I figured
For whatever reason,
because
you
the
simply
the option to open the
cannot
door was
open
there
the door.
at first. Now I'm just mashing E and it's working.
Okay.
Unfortunately for me, it's so late that Petra was already able to get in.
Just when I wanted to vent my
Usually you'll be able to talk to him through the door. However, luckily he's easy to kill, so stabbing a couple times did the trick
Yeah,
in
that
this
was
case.
really
But
sucky,
usually you do want to
I
just
did
go talk to
lose
him while he's
a
trying to
huge deal
lockpick
of
the
time
outer
in
door.
terms of like game time.
And you can just
That was
mash
pretty
that
much just
dialogue.
loading and stuff. Well, I guess in the future,
Unfortunately, it's
know
quite
that
difficult to showcase a run where
if that bullshit
everything
happens
goes
again,
as
what
planned.
I need to do is get next to the door, save and exit, then reload the save and mash E before the...
But with all these weird things that have happened to me so far during my runs,
before
I have learned quite a few ways to deal with unexpected issues that typically there won't really be anything that will completely stop me.
But yeah, I'm losing a huge amount of real time here.
Anyway, you talk to Fayfar and then you
Can't do anything about that.
wait 24 hours for them to build the trebuchet.
I guess it's not a huge deal.
And when waiting, I want to keep my nourishment high enough. And that's where
Good
the
stuff.
additional
the
food
first
comes in
night?
handy.
I think so.
There is another pod in this
Yeah, okay,
camp, but it's a bit
losing
further
quite a
away,
bit
so you
of
don't
game
really want to
time
run
as
between
well.
them.
I guess that just is to be expected.
I got a little confused
that
here.
level of bullshit.
Need to keep track of time. In a way that...
Fortunately, I'll still be like 2 minutes ahead. But I did lose like a minute to that.
in a way that... like at the end of the waiting you can like... sleep the final
Yeah, what can I say?
time that's left to gain your energy back. In the end, I did kind of end up disregarding my nourishment and balanced diet.
I could do with a bite to eat.
Oh, I'm
Be a bit more careful.
this hungry. I don't
That
think
that was actually
that is supposed to be the case.
that was
right
actually
now, but
completely accidental. I just did not pay attention to my nourishment for
something
whatever
weird
reason.
happened there with time.
Okay, if things go right, you'd have the balanced diet buff active in this fight that's coming up right now. But you can
I
definitely
don't know if it was
get
something
through
that
it without it.
the timer also reacted to. I'll have to check and make sure that it's correct. If it's not, then I'll have to manually correct it.
Hold. Hold.
For this fight, I have not found any way to kind of get free movement here.
Easy. Easy.
Even by using a glitch where I could fast travel here while sitting,
Easy.
sort of, I was unable to gain free movement the same way as in the archery training.
They were expecting us. First troops to the bridge. Break through. Vanguard to the left. And the rest, come with me. We'll flank the bastard.
You kind of want to do the menu here. Take the local hero perk, because that's the only one that might be useful for me. I think it can activate in Talmberg, at least
Got the piercing arrows,
if things
good.
have gone well for you.
I really need some armor for this fight though. You don't want to skip armor for this fight.
You do want armor, and you do want to use the hazel bow here.
Never do that.
The enemies
Die.
in this fight are quite the opposite from what you saw in Vronic. Here they will gladly target you if you get at all close to them.
Kill. Fortunately,
I guess practically they will target the closest
if there are more
enemy
exposed faces to shoot.
for them. You just need to find some space where you can
Can't
try to
clear
get some
shots.
clear shots. Those are a bit difficult to find, but that is still your
Okay,
best
good. I got
bet.
the guy with the spear.
And if you can get those headshots, they will kill these guys without proper headgear
He got in my way.
really efficiently.
Oh well, it wasn't a spear, but some other polearm. Time. Okay, I got the kill. Ah, that was close.
An alternative to this fight is to pick up a polearm from one of the enemies that you kill,
That was good.
but quite often it can be a bit tricky to achieve that. At some point the reinforcements will arrive, and when that happens it's usually a good idea to switch to a sword.
Help! Help!
as often
On my own then.
all that's left are the heavily armored enemies, and for them it's faster to use a melee weapon
My
instead.
best split here is pretty crazy.
Also, polearm is the better option, but the sword will do just fine if you were unable to pick up a polearm earlier. For this fight, I find that
That's really good. I got rid of that big guy.
you want to
Thought.
focus these
Okay, allies.
heavily armored enemies, because it seems like
No one's helping me.
you need to just, you don't need to kill all of them, you need to sort of
Standing on top of bushes.
just kill some of them, and quite often I see that killing the less armored enemies does not seem to
Could've been better at that section altogether, but
count towards the objective. So I go for the big guys because I know that they will count for the objective for sure, and I will not be wasting my time if I'm trying to kill them. But you do want your allies to help you, because it's really difficult to take on those enemies on your own
seconds. Oh, right.
with a random sword and shitty stats on your
Too
character.
experimental in my strats. I believe so. That may have been the issue. It really didn't go too well. Ooh. Excuse me.
Here you have a couple options for movement, actually.
Management is
You could optionally take off the armor and
eat from the pot.
that way run a bit faster. I have not really tested how much of a difference that would make in either direction. But quite often you
Sure.
end up having to wait for your allies here to some degree.
Please. What was that?
I
got
don't
confused
think it
this
really
time.
matters that much how
Just
fast you
simply
can
could
actually
not
move here.
move.
Just by running, you can get here and catch these guys off guard. And your goal here is to shoot one of these guys in the face,
Yeah. Did they aggro on me?
and that usually aggroes the enemies.
I believe optimal.
And when that happened, I believe those allies that were with you earlier, like you saw them there, they will actually sort of just teleport there if these enemies chase you.
I'm not
far
if that's
here.
so good, but the rest of the guys.
So that should speed things up.
You see,
But it's quite unusual that that one guy chased me all the way over here.
my allies just kind of.
The goal here is kind of to
Care of them.
uh,
Oh, this guy is really biting.
try to protect the random god. You have Hans there as well, but Hans is much stronger, and Hans also cannot die.
The reinforcements.
I don't think he can even take damage in general.
But they're running past.
So there's really not much reason to go help him. But if you can protect the random god,
But they're probably going somewhere.
you will
else.
have more, like, sort of attack power against the enemies later on, and you will not get outnumbered.
Oh no, I don't want to die.
So this fight did not go too well for me
Don't want to die. No, no.
for this run.
Don't get stuck on
It was
everything.
quite close that I
Don't
pretty much almost died in this fight, so
do it. It's really dangerous.
most of the time you just see me running away from the enemies.
Why can I not?
This fight doesn't like 100% depend on
finally.
you.
That
So-
was really sketchy and dangerous. I did not like that.
If it
at
gets
all.
really dangerous, you can simply just keep running and avoid the enemies.
Start talking.
However, of course, your
I won't betray.
goal sort of is to
That was
like the team with your allies and
that is absolutely the sketchiest
like chain
that
attack
has ever been. Absolutely
down those
ridiculous.
enemies as quickly as possible.
All the
But
stuff
that fight can be really random. Sometimes it can
didn't
be
go
very
as
fast.
It was supposed
It
to.
just ends
So a
suddenly.
bit of that.
You don't even expect it. But most of the time, kind of need to improvise a lot and just
I managed to save time somehow.
try to decide
So,
where you should be and who you should try to
it's
attack,
always
and
good.
should you use the bow or the sword.
Be with you, Henry.
Quite a bit of improvisation in the end. But you always get through one way or another. So you use the trebuchet here.
I did get
You need to
the
wait just a little while before talking to Robarb,
contemplative here.
otherwise you don't get the dialogue.
Get the head cracker here.
And then I do
as
the
well.
menu here to
Lazarus potion and start waiting.
get contemplative. This is why I have been grinding experience wherever I have been able to. Leveling up your main stats
This Holmberg fight somehow
gets your main level up
like completely screws me over
too.
for no
And
good reason.
with main level 12, I believe, you can get contemplative, which speeds up this portion of the game significantly.
Like if I were to actually die at the end
Because this way you don't need
of the
to
fight or
eat
something like that,
or sleep at all.
that would be the worst. 3
You don't need
minutes ahead
to
here and
trouble yourself with any of that. You just wait 24 hours
I don't-
2
I don't
times,
wanna think
and then
about
you
it.
kind of need to wait a little bit more on top to actually get that 48 hours in. As you can see here, the dialogue is just not there.
No, he's not ready. I need to wait a little bit extra. And then I'm done waiting. I don't think I used to have
You also saw me use a Lazarus
If you
potion
want-
before starting to
still
wait.
have done.
If you take damage in the previous fight
Whatever, let's wait until
and you come here wounded, you can just use a Lazarus potion and it'll fully refill your health. If you're bleeding, that's a bigger problem if you don't have bandages. And that is why I do pick up some bandages along the way. Because there is just no other convenient way to fix bleeding. You want to have some of those for emergencies. So this is the final fight of the game. You kind of need to wait for these guys to set up the ladders here. The middle ladders will get set up first. And to get up as fast as possible,
can you climb?
you want to get on top of this rock here. And then just use the ladder as soon as possible. And before you go there, you want to use all these potions that you have.
And there's
Of course, only one of each.
dogwood bow and
So with the rage potion, you get 50% more
quality arrows
damage
sound good.
With the box blood potion you get 50% more maximum stamina.
This particular section.
And the... I don't know what it's called, but one potion gives you bow skill, which is useful here. And you have that from the chest that you picked up earlier. And then a Lazarus potion to undo any damage that you take in this section, for example. In this section you kind of just go YOLO all in and ignore the pain. You don't take that much damage from them shooting you, so you can just get next to them and use the bow, shoot them in the face and they'll die. It's very easy to do. Just get real close and only use the bow. If you take out a sword, I think they will take out their melee weapons as well. And that is not what you want. You might end up dying quite easily. But if you're using the bow, they will also use the bow. And you can just tank the hits and shoot them in the face.
Actually, I really didn't need
and this is not that much different, however, it is much more chaotic. The enemies and your allies might spread anywhere they want. Split up or aggro on one enemy or get stuck in a corner or whatever. Weird things might happen. Here, if you're lucky, you can get a kill like right off the bat.
It's a bit dangerous.
This time I didn't get it. Again, you try to aim for the faces. But sometimes my hand shakes and I can't quite hit the mark.
Nice. Nice. Okay, one more guy.
But typically, there aren't many ways that you can like completely get screwed over here.
Okay, they did it.
If most of your allies die right away, then it will get really slow, and that will be quite unlucky if that happens. However, Bernard is of course invincible, so you can rely on him. And even if everyone else dies, you can just take it slowly and you'll eventually get there.
Take this duel here. Better.
So as long as you
nice head cracker.
do not die,
That's what I love to
you
see.
will be able to get through this section of the game. It's just about how long it takes.
This guy doing here.
That depends on you and your allies.
Beat the shit
But
out of this guy
you'll
here.
get through eventually anyway. So here also you pretty much only want to use melee and try to
Comboing him.
kill these heavily armored guys as well. You kind of want to hope that they don't get stuck there
There.
like he just did.
What a freaking idiot.
Sometimes they just kind of hover in that direction
Beat at least this guy then.
for no good reason. And that's really bad when that happens. So this fight did not go all that well.
Where are my allies?
All the allies are
Screw you.
here and I can't really do anything,
Okay.
but
Whatever that
luckily
was.
the fight
Whatever that was, I
ended suddenly
no idea.
and I am able to
No clue.
continue.
Simply.
But with all the potions that you use, the fight is pretty safe as long as you don't get like two enemies teaming up against you alone. Even if you just get one enemy just focusing you, then you want to kind of get cover from your allies. Run to where your allies are,
Split, but not much.
and that'll make it quite safe for you. Anyway, here you just run to the credits trigger.
Better.
Quite simple. simple stuff. Just the straight route there. So to wrap it up, I do think it's quite an enjoyable run in that I have now found some interesting like glitches and exploits to make it faster. And then I think that the room for improvisation is also quite interesting in this game. It's not like you don't improvise when things go wrong. Well, you do that, of course, but most of the improvisation is just like kind of reading the situation that's happening right there, and then acting based on it. And I think that's one of the things that makes this game, or makes this speedrun rather, so interesting to me at least. And despite the RNG elements in the run, like if you think about a marathon setting, there are backups. There are some backups that might waste you like 2 minutes, but anyway, you still do get back on track and continue the run without a problem. Anyway, I hope you find this video somehow useful, and yeah, I hope the community for this games like speedrunning will grow, and we can attract more speedrunners. But until then, I'll keep developing this further, taking this further in general, and see where this leads. I have kind of thought of some like challenge categories, like for one, hand-to-hand only, and sort of to my surprise, it's actually not too bad. It is quite a bit slower than the normal run, of course, but it's quite surprising how well you can manage with some alternate strats when you don't like have a bow or a sword. It does work quite well, and that will also be an enjoyable run, although a bit longer. Anyway, I'll be off, and I hope you have a good day.